On the Woodpecker today, I'm fed up of having my Mitre saw on my sawhorses. So I'm starting a Mitre station. Like I said before, my new Mitre saw is still on a piece of plywood on top of my sawhorses. I know those sawhorses can handle the weight, but it's just not that practical. When I cut a long piece of wood, I don't have a lot of support, so I need to put a stand to hold it. I also want to put the saw on the opposite side of the shop, just where I have this mess. So I bought 6 elm boards for the structure. Then, with the help of my plan, I marked all the pieces I need from those boards and cut them to length. Now that all the pieces are more manageable, I straighten them on the jointer. When I have 2 sides straight, I run all the pieces through the thickness planer. Now that I have a nice straight pile, I cut each piece to width. This takes a while, but now I have all the pieces for the station skeleton. I just need to cut them to the right length. I use my table saw for this because on the fence of my sliding table, I have a stop. But the fence is smaller than the long pieces. To cut them, I clamp them all together, align every piece, and cut them all in one shot. Finally, I have all the pieces cut to the right length. The first thing to do is to glue those 2 pieces together. Because of the way the edge of the bottom of my walls are made, I have to offset the back legs. For speed, and because I'm a bit lazy, all my joinery will be done with domino mortises. I start with the 4 legs at the back. When all the mortises are done, I just spread glue on both pieces, on the domino, put the 2 together, and clamp them. When the glue is dry, I mark and make the mortises for all 4 sides assemblies. I try all of them, just to make sure I didn't goof up. Then I put a 1/2 inch slot cutting bit in the router at the height of 1/4 of an inch and cut the panel's groove. The styles have a stop groove. I reassemble it again and measure the panel size. Then I cut plywood pieces to size. I need to make a rabbet around the panels. To do so, I use a dado stack and I adjust it for a rabbet of 1/2 inch wide and a height of 1/4 and make all the rabbets. Some of the plywood is a little bowed. I fix the rabbet with a rabbet plane. Next, I sand all the pieces that will be hard to sand after the glue up. Then I glue the sides assemblies. Since I use plywood inside the frames, I glue them. The last thing to do is to clamp it all and lay each assembly aside to dry. When this is dry, I make the mortises for the front and back of the small section. After a dry fit, I route the grooves. The side assemblies are a little bit more difficult to route this time. And just like for the sides, I measure the size of the plywood panels, cut them, make the rabbets, and glue everything together. But this time around, I use slow set epoxy to glue the small section. But all the steps are the same as the sides. When it's all glued together, I put some clamps. The last thing to do is check for squareness. To fix it, I clamp it diagonally. Now that the small section is done, I have to do the same steps for the big one. I leave this to dry overnight on my workbench. The next morning I notice that I completely forgot this cross brace. So I mark its length and cut it. Then I make the mortises on the stretchers. On that brace, I need to make open mortises. Then it's just a question of gluing it all in place. To keep on working on the frame, I ask René to help me put it on the ground. Then I glue the three pieces, which will hold both sections together. While the glue is drying, I make and glue cleats to hold the top later on. I have to use all my small clamps for this. Now I must do something for this hole. So I rip some plywood at 45 degrees. To keep both pieces together during the glue up, I use dominoes again. And because of those dominoes, I just need to clamp in only one direction. When the glue is dry, I measure and cut it. Then I drill some dowel holes. I use a dowel center finder to figure out the dowel placement. Then I can mark their placement. And drill the holes. I sand it before gluing it in place. I use molding glue because it's so thick it doesn't drip. When I glued it in place, I noticed that the bottom dowels didn't work, so I have no dowels at the bottom. To finish it all, I put on more clamps. I do exactly the same thing for the other side, and sand all the places that I haven't sanded before. Then I spray on 2 coats of varnish inside and outside. The next morning the varnish is dry and I can install the leveling feet. Before putting it up to the wall, I run a bead of caulking between the bottom of my walls and the floor. I do the same on the top corner. Then we can put it in place. Now that the structure is fully completed, I can continue the Mitre station in another episode of the Woodpecker.